I guess the next day, as the Japanese recovered from the landing, here came their Navy and their plane.
The night after the American invasion, Japanese warships sailed down a narrow channel between Guadalcanal and the neighboring Savo Island. This time, it's the Americans who are surprised. With the Japanese now in command of the attack, over 1,000 Americans are killed. 4 heavy cruisers are sunk. 1 destroyer is a total loss. For the American Navy, this is the worst disaster since Pearl Harbor.
This was the time when we didn't control the water or the air. They came down with 2 battleships and I don't know how many cruisers and destroyers, and they just cruised up and down the coast. It went on, sounded like 10 hours. We'd land on the side of the hill, just praying, when's it going to stop? And yeah, you're scared to death. Well, the Navy commander that was in charge of the fleet at that time, he did not wish to lose what little he had. And so he skedaddled back out of range. Well, when he left, that left the transports, which we had been on, like sitting ducks. And so they up anchored and followed. And so we got ashore with darn little supplies. And I think we pretty much were on the slaughtering block. I don't really think too many people thought that we were going to be able to hold on.
Marine engineers furiously work around the clock to finish the airfield, using captured Japanese equipment to do the job. During the day, Japanese bombs blow new holes in the field. But on August 12th, the field is finally ready. The first American plane lands on Guadalcanal. A week later, more planes follow. The newly arrived American planes keep the Japanese from landing reinforcements during the daylight hours. But when night falls, Japanese cruisers and destroyers make regular nightly runs down the channel between Guadalcanal and Savo Island. It is during these attacks that reinforcements move onto Guadalcanal. Two weeks after the American landing, the Japanese make their first move to retake Henderson Field.
The Japanese believed themselves to be invincible. They thought that the Americans, soldiers or Marines, lacked the fighting spirit that characterized Japanese troops. They also felt that the Americans were spiritually weak and that they despised hand-to-hand combat, at which the Japanese excelled. Furthermore, the Japanese loved night attacks, and they were convinced the Americans were terrified of the night. Their infantry tactics favored hand-to-hand combat and close combat. These are conditions the jungle terrain favors very much.
The attack is suicidal. Outnumbered more than 4 to 1, nearly 1,000 Japanese are cut down on the banks of the Tenaru River.
In the tropics, it takes a mighty few hours till that body is bloated and then the insects take over. And so you have to do something to try and prevent disease.
But the Japanese are already gathering their forces for yet another attack on Henderson Field. General Kawaguchi, commanding the Japanese brigade, is convinced he can take back Guadalcanal within 6 weeks.
Their great advantage, I think, at Guadalcanal was the fact that many of the Japanese troops there were combat veterans. They had combat experience in China and the Netherlands East Indies. Many of the Marines didn't. Their great advantage, I think, at Guadalcanal was the fact that they were tough, hardened combat veterans. There were many difficulties associated with jungle fighting. The most important was the way that the jungle just fragmented units. It was very difficult to bring an entire unit together to accomplish its mission because of the rugged terrain, thick jungle, swamps, rivers, whatever.
After 3 weeks on Tulagi, Marines are transported over to Guadalcanal. Now they're on the alert for snipers.
The Japanese were very good using snipers. See, those palm trees, they just skinny up those things and set up there in branches. And they'd get 2 or 3 before you could ever get them. That's how well hidden they were, see. And anytime you were on a trail going someplace, you're apt to run into them.
Because there is great difficulty trying to get resupply transports to Guadalcanal, the Japanese found themselves short of everything from food to medicine. Obviously, this affected their combat performance.
Both Japanese and Americans, though, have to fight a common enemy: malaria. Some of the symptoms include chills, uncontrollable shaking, then intense fever. It saps a soldier's strength, and there's nothing he can do about it. Quinine is scarce. The medics instead give out pills to check the spread of malaria. But many Marines throw them away, thinking they can cause sterility. The result is unfortunate. In the first month alone, malaria puts more than 1,000 Marines out of action. In the months to come, more than 8,000 Marines will be hospitalized. But fortunately, only 3 cases prove fatal.